Can you hear me? Okay.
Hold on. Hello, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Now I can hear you. I wasn't
Uh,
hearing you at all before. For some reason. If you were talking.
Hello. So,
I think my mic was coming a little bit unplugged.
well,
Okay. So we're starting off with a keep from both players, both keeping 7. Um, looks like Dragonfly is playing out the tap land, so he's not going for that turn 1 Bomat Courier. If you guys can see hands here, he had the option to play this turn 1. Instead, he went for the tap land, playing into the Scrap Heap Scrounger turn 2. So right away, I'm starting to see a little bit of concern from Dragonfly on this Jeskai Ensoul list. His deck is not very good at blocking. The Scrap Heap Scrounger here is unable to block. He's got a lot of 1-drops who aren't the best at blocking here, so it's going to be very one-sided of both of these players attacking into each other and not doing as much blocking, I think. So from the other side, we've got a good hand here. A lot of 1-drops, which looks pretty good, and he's got this Smuggler's Copter. So he could either run that out here, or he can drop 2 1-drops this turn, and then go for the Smuggler's Copter for the extra next turn. So we're going to have to see what he does here. On the other hand, what we do have to talk about is these 3 Shrapnel Blasts going on in Dragonfly's hand. So that's 15 points of damage. That's quite a bit. So if one more fetch here, or if he takes a point of damage here off of tapping his Ramen Up runes, that's putting him in place where he's almost at lethal damage. On board, it'll just take a few turns and quite a few artifacts to sack before he'd actually be able to do that. So we're playing the Smuggler's Copter, that pumps it up, he gets in for 2. We do not see a 3rd land, so that Spell Queller is going to be stuck here. He's got a couple options here, probably just going to run out this Smuggler's Copter of his own. But again, Smuggler's Copter a lot better on the offense than the defense. You don't really want to be trying to hold up your Smuggler's Copter as a way to block. That tends to get it just knocked down by something like this Lightning Strike waiting in C-Squared's hand. So we were 18 to 16, going back to the Atarka Red player here. So he draws a card, thinking for a second, it looks like a Bloodstained Mire, so yet another fetch land. He'll probably, this is nice, he gets to have the untapped basic, and then that turns on the Cinderglade in his hand. He'll be able to get that untapped on his following turn if he likes. Looks like 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 3 1-drops all in a row here, so really spreading out that board. What he's hoping for now is one of those Atarka's commands, gets to pump up the whole team all to 3-4s or a 4-4. Be really scary, and already we're knocking down Dragonfly to 12. So the clock is on. Okay, 3rd land helps him quite a bit, but there's still going to be a little bit of awkwardness. He's got this Spell Queller, which is going to sit in his hand unless he has a good target for it. And right now, if C-Square just, swings out his team, the Spell Queller is not going to look so great there. So he's got to kind of think, would he rather play this Bomat Courier, try and crew this Copter as a blocker with the Scrap Heap Scrounger. He's also got the Shrapnel Blast, which can be used to take out creatures instead of going for the face, but it's starting to be a dicey situation when you've got so many creatures coming out so quickly from the Atarka Red side. Alright, I'm not sure what happened to my my co-host here. If he hears me, he'll hopefully jump back on, but I'm going to just keep talking otherwise.
An interesting thing to note is that C-Squared is already at 15. So if Dragonfly does go for the end of turn Shrapnel Blast, he has lethal if he draws an untapped land.
Yes, that's true. That would mean if he only survives this turn, though. So he's got to survive 4 Prowess creatures and a Smuggler's Copter at 12 life here, which is a little bit dicey. I do agree, though, that if he just goes for Upstairs, that might be his out here to try and not lose this game. Alright. We've got him thinking. He's considering if he wants to run something out in his main phase. I think the only thing he could do here would be the Bomat Courier. Which I think is, if he's thinking about Shrapnel Blast, either to the hand or to a creature, there's really no problem in playing the Bomat Courier. If he holds up mana, it's because he wants to hold up the possibility of this Spell Queller here. So he's actually going on the aggressive. So what he's doing here is he's crewing, he's swinging for... Oh no, he's not crewing. He's just going to swing for 3 with these... with this Scrap Heap Scrounger here. So that knocks him down to 12 life, which, if he's just going for Shrapnel Blast, doesn't change the math here at all. So we're going to have to see what he goes for. So on board, I see 3 damage from Prowess creatures, 3 damage from Smuggler's Copter, 3 damage from Lightning Strike, and 3 damage from pumping up the Prowess creatures, which is lethal if nothing else changed. Obviously, we know that there's a removal spell or a Spell Queller, but it's already dicey here. Especially if he tries to go for Spell Queller to block, that would put him in a bad situation. Otherwise, now C-Squared has another out. He just drew a Hazoret off the top from that loot from the Smuggler's Copter, which will put him in a position where he can play that and swing. But I assume there's going to be a Lightning Strike here somewhere. Okay, so Dragonfly goes for no blocks, which I believe puts him in a bad situation. Okay, he will be able to Spell Queller to stop the burn from the Lightning Strike, but he'll still take the Prowess damage, which will put him down to 3. Let's see what he does here. If he does the math, he'll know that he can't simply go for the Shrapnel Blast play. Oh, also, by the way, that Shrapnel Blast play wouldn't have worked because he didn't have the third artifact. He would have to draw exactly the artifact to land in order for that to work. Excuse me, a little bit of a cough there.
Bomat Courier, and then crewed the copter to block and shrapnel blast it.
That would have worked
So
as well, yes.
Loot to find land.
He can loot to
That
find
doesn't
land.
actually do anything because everything in his hand he needed to win.
If you'll excuse me 1 second, I'm just going to grab a glass of water. Otherwise, I'll be coughing all stream. All right, so the what did I miss here?
Fly 1, he attacked and then shrapnel blasted his opponent for lethal. So sideboard cards of note for Dragonfly, he has 2 Authority of the Consuls, 2 Clerics, and a Hazoret. I think you bring in Seal Away.
Yeah, I think Seal Away is definitely great here. So let's take a look at these sideboards. I'm going to pull them up here in just one moment. Somebody sent me a link of these. Here we go. Okay, so looking first at the Jeskai Ensoul deck sideboard here. So what I said, I think, before still holds true, is that this deck has a lot of trouble blocking in the post-board games. Things like the Bomat Courier, the Toolcraft Exemplar, Scrapheap Scrounger, all not very good at blocking. But he does have some better options in the sideboard. Oh, and in addition to that, he didn't have any removal outside of Shrapnel Blast to try and take care of some of all of these creatures coming from Atarka. So what he can look for here, he's got Arishan Cleric is definitely good. The Seal Away, I think, is 100% coming in. Settle the Wreckage might be too slow, but if he's not bringing it in this matchup, I'm not sure where he does bring it in. My question is probably about Authority of the Consuls. So you'd normally think that's very good against a deck that's going wide, going with a lot of small creatures. I'm not sure if he wants to be playing this because he is also an aggro deck. He does want to be going for a lethal attack rather than just trying to sit back. He doesn't have something like a Fumigate, which Authority of the Consuls would buy time for and be much stronger. The only other one I might look at is Spell Pierce here, which is probably an upgrade on the Metallic Rebuke. He's not likely to get to a point where Rebuke is as easy to cast, and anything from Atarka Red is probably playing on curve, where Spell Pierce would be more powerful. Now, from C-Squared side, we actually got some notes on exactly what he's bringing in. He's taking out one of his Become Amends, taking out 2 of his Zergo Bellstriker, and he's bringing in 1 Abrade and 2 Aether Harvester. So that makes a lot of sense. The Harvester is good with, gaining life. It gives you a chance to... Here, let me pull up that deck there before they start. And you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So here is the Atarka Red list. You can see what he had main board, and here is the sideboard that he's talking about. So he's looking for this Abrade. Is a great way to take out those artifacts. He's looking at Aether Harvester as a way to gain some life, is a big blocker in the air, which I think is going to be a strength for this matchup. So once they get back into game here, we are already back in the game. So it looks like we had a Keep of 7 from C-Squared. He went with a turn 1 Soulscar Mage. Dragonfly went into a turn 1 Bomat Courier, which couldn't attack into Soulscar Mage, and we're following up with Dragon Fodder. So this is about how you want to start a game with Atarka Red. You got a 1-drop Prowess creature, 2-drop, you're now already on 3 creatures on the board, so that's looking pretty good. On the other hand, we do see Ensoul Artifact, the card of the deck, coming into play here. That might be what he goes for on this turn 2. Either that or he'll go for a Scrapheap Scrounger. We're going to have to see how quickly he wants to start erasing his opponent here. But 5 damage a turn raises quite quickly if that's what he goes for. Now, what we see on the other side, there's a Stoke and an Atarka's Command. So I don't think he's going to chump block here. I think he's going to want to chump block at some point, but when you've got the Atarka's Command in hand, you probably don't want to jump in front of this 5/5 just yet. You'd rather get those 2 points of damage and then trade it later, perhaps. But we will see what C Squared wants to do. Now, something that he does have is that this Stoke the Flames could turn this this Bomat Courier back into a 1/1 thanks to Soulscar Mage here. Ooh, okay, so he does go for the Trump block. He's thinking that he's a little bit more of the defensive deck just because of how fast the Ensoul aggro deck attacks. Alright, now a 5th land drawn for C Squared. That's not exactly where he wants to be. Let's see what he goes for here. I think the safest play would probably be to swing for 1 and then hold up Stoke the Flames, but I think that's a little bit risky. He may hold back entirely rather than getting that cheeky extra 1 point of damage. But either way, this Stoke the Flames, it'll put 4 -1/-1 counters on the Bomat Courier. That's one way that he can take care of it. That's also something that he could do to take care of if he had ensouled this Darksteel Citadel, which is something that deck can do. It is quite scary when it does it. So, he's thinking for a moment here. He's trying to decide if he attacks. So, like I was saying, probably the obvious free attack would be the Goblin, and then to block with the Soulscar Mage. That might raise some suspicion. If he goes the other way, he could block with the Goblin and still trade with the Stoke the Flames, but that's obviously a little less strong. The Soulscar Mage would survive if he made that line of play. Alright, so he is going for Atarka's command. 3 in pump. So he's going for just a straight race here. Now what's strange is that if he were going for this line, I think I would have liked to see the extra Goblin token get in there, but that's not
if you're gonna do this line with Stoke in hand, I don't think it's worth it to lose your Goblin.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's probably... I might have kept that Goblin in play, but he may have been hoping to draw something else that would have been aggression here. Alright, so another untapped mana. He is going for this Flooded Strand rather than playing the Spirebluff Canal that he has in hand. So he's valuing the white mana to be able to play this Spell Queller rather than the untapped Spirebluff Canal. So now if he plays the Spirebluff Canal later, it's going to come into play tapped. So we'll see if that comes back to bite him. Alright, we've got a draw for C Squared. It is yet another land, so he is flooding out here a little bit. He's got 2 more as backup in hand. At this point, I feel like he really has to pull the brakes and try and survive against this ensouled Bomat Courier. We've got C Squared at 14, Dragonfly at 10, but the most he could swing for here would be 1, 2, 3, and the 4 would put him to 3, which means that even that that Ramunap Ruins in hands is not lethal. And furthermore, he knows he's going to bite this. Well, he doesn't know about the Spell Queller, but he could be trying to be worried about those possibility of counterspells. Well, they're thinking here, just a quick thought, is that if he does not go for the Spell Queller this turn, basically if C Squared doesn't play anything this turn, I don't mind the idea of Shrapnel Blasting, getting rid of this Darksteel Citadel, and then that would actually knock him back down to 2 lands, which would mean that his Spirebluff Canal does come into play untapped, which is quite nice. Alright, so he is going for the attack. If he goes for Stoke here, I think he is in trouble. Alright, so he does not go for the Stoke. I think that's probably the safer play, knowing about the counter spells in Dragonfly's deck. The 1 extra prowess damage doesn't seem like it's going to play a difference because it wouldn't knock him to 2. If it would have knocked him to 2, I'd say go for it, but in this case it does not. So now we have to do exactly what we were just saying, is that does Dragonfly do anything with his mana? Does he play the Spell Queller? Does he... okay, so this is the other line I was looking at, is that he's now going for the Stoke when he fetches, it looks like. Now the question is going to be, does he go for the Bomat Courier or does he go for Dragonfly's Face? Because I think either of them is decent lines. I probably prefer going for the Face. You got an opinion?
Face seems good to me. 3. And then the Ramunap... So then he would be currently dead on board, assuming he doesn't play a creature. 1 in hand. That he's
yes, because
probably going to play.
The Goblin token gets around if he held back as a blocker. So now I wonder if the safer play is to still make this Stoke play, go for the face, and then be able to use this Spell Queller to prevent any kind of burn spell coming off the top next turn, which might be a bad play into the face of Ramanap Ruins, but we'll have to see what happens here. Alright, so he played nothing at the end of his turn there. Let me do a quick check. I want to make sure he does have a basic Plains in deck. Yes, he does have a basic Plains. So he could have fetched a Plains there and either played the Spell Queller flat out, or he could have done this Shrapnel Blast play, which would have turned on his Firebluff Canal. Instead, he's kind of playing it slow here, which I think is risky with the with your life down to 3 as a against an Atarka red deck. There's a whole lot of cards that could come off the top of C-Squared's deck, which would be lethal. Of note, this is just going to be an interesting interaction that could come up here. So this this version of Atarka Red is running Exquisite Firecraft, which does say that if there are 2 more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, it can't be countered by spells or abilities. Now,
But
on the other hand,
can still exile it, right?
Yes, Spell Queller can indeed still counter that because it does not counter the spell, it simply exiles it. So if that possibly comes up, it would be an interesting play. I think those are both texts that you don't normally see happen, but would be very interesting to see play here. Now let's see what he does. I believe that if he attacks, and he's in a lot of trouble, because that would mean that any burn spell off the top is lethal, even through the Spell Queller. So I would definitely like to see this Bomat Courier hang back for now. And the other thing let's not forget about is that he does have these 2 cards sitting there on the Bomat Courier. If he ever felt like his hand there's no way he can win with it, he can reset it with that Bomat Courier and get a couple of freebies to possibly see another chance here. So they're thinking for a minute. I think that it's a tense moment. You always feel uncomfortable when you're facing down this kind of lethal board. There's 2 cards in C-Squared's hand. He's probably expecting that they're some kind of action because there's no way for him to know that they're simply lands here. Otherwise, he could make a slightly more aggressive attack. But either way, I think you want to hold back with this Bomat Courier and probably hold back with this Spell Queller. So pass the turn there makes a lot of sense. Alright, we untap and we draw Hazoret. Okay, so let's see what that changes. Now Hazoret still can be countered by this Spell Queller. That would leave him with 1 mana up, which he'd probably be fearful for Wild Slash, but that's really the only thing that can burn him. I think that if we see Hazoret, then that's definitely the play to go for. Okay. So he simply attacks. That's very interesting here. Okay, let's see what he does, because I think he's trying to play off of this sneaky little Ramanap Ruins. Dragonfly is counting on being able to counter any kind of burn spell, so instead he's sneaking in with this 1 point of damage with the Goblin token, and he's going to activate this Ramanap Ruins here for lethal. Yep, looks good.
That was a good block.
That was a good play. I think that if he had run out Hazoret, it would have given him the chance to Spell Queller, gotten him a whole nother turn here, so that worked out well for C-Squared. Alright, which means that we are going to a game 3 between these 2. Wow, these have both been very close. I think that who we're expecting to win at every point has not always been the person that's won. So quite interesting to see this, and I'm hoping for another fun, quick match here. Alright, looks like no changes on the sideboard. We've got Dragonfly keeping a 7, and we've got Clayton C-Squared here also keeping a 7. So looks good to us. I can see Clayton's hand here. I will get Dragonflies in a moment. Okay, there we go. So I see there's no untapped white source here on 1, which is, it's something awkward. I think we've been seeing that a bit from this Jeskai Ensoul list, is that he would love to have this Tool Crafting Exemplar on 1, but not having untapped white sources, as many of them in the deck, seems to be a problem. So we get the turn 1 Monastery Swiftspear and Swing, and then we're going to have to go for turn 2 Scrapheap Scrounger. So like I was saying, Scrapheap Scrounger, Toolcraft Exemplar, not good blockers, and we're getting exactly what I said we'd like to see, which is Prowess Creature on 1 and Dragon Fodder on 2. There we go, we've got 3 creatures on the board, and the race is certainly on. So already Dragonfly seems to be in a spot where he kind of has to either act awkwardly, he could hold up all 3 of his mana for a Spell Queller, which I think is very, very obvious what he'd be doing, or he could go for playing this Toolcraft Exemplar, playing this Scrapheap Scrounger, and just saying, okay, I'm going to race you, that's my only chance here. The attack with the Scrapheap Scrounger is pretty safe. That's a, it can't block, so might as well swing with it, unless he's holding up Metallic Rebuke, which he did leave in. Let's see what he goes for here. Yep, Scrap Heap Scrounger, Toolcraft Exemplar. He's got what could be 9 power on the board, and he's saying that he's going to race. Alright, we've got a land from Clayton. He's going to use his fetch land instead of playing the new land. Not huge. I mean, there's not really any difference there, I don't think. He doesn't have his Become Immense in board anymore, so there's no real point to filling up his graveyard. But people like to thin their deck. It can't hurt too badly. Alright, we've got a Wild Slash going for a Toolcraft Exemplar, and looks like another Dragon Fodder. I like that a lot. That'll put 5 on the board. And he'll swing in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thanks to the 2 prowess triggers on this Monastery Swift Spear. There we go, and we'll pass it back to Dragonfly's way, down to 12. So we're already in, again, like I said, situation. He's getting in trouble to block here. He's got a couple options here. Ooh, so I might have liked not swinging with one of the Scrap Heap to be able to hold up that Metallic Rebuke, but I think that might be a little translucent if he did try that. So he's still going for this race. He's counting on those burn spells, hopefully some Shrapnel Blasts to finish him off. Interesting. So Clayton decides that he's going to actually block here. Now, let me take a quick look. We do have these Scrap Heap Scroungers, but do we have any black sources out of this Jeskai Ensoul list? It looks like the only way that he can bring them back is that Spire of Industry, and he's got 1 Fetid Pools. So that's a reasonable trade. He's trading 1 card to take out this Scrap Heap Scrounger, and on board it doesn't look like he's getting it back anytime soon. We've got a swing from C-Squared. He does have Spell Mastery if he wants to play this Exquisite Firecraft, and again, like we were saying, it would not be countered by Metallic Rebuke, but it could still be countered by Spell Queller. So let's see what he goes for here. Interesting. So he's playing it out. He's playing the Spell Queller, and then C-Squared is choosing to Lightning Bolt the Scrap Heap Scrounger. So he's slowing down the aggression, counting on winning the race just based on the creatures he's got. We've got an untapped land for Dragonfly, which is nice, or he could probably use this to fetch that Fetid Pools, and in the future be able to bring back those Scrap Heap Scroungers. I think that's a decent line, but they aren't great at blocking, so it's a little bit risky here. Otherwise, now he's in a position, so okay, he's got this last card in hand is Metallic Rebuke. If he doesn't attack with Bomat Courier, he can use it for the Metallic Rebuke. Okay, which is what he's not doing, so he's holding it back. He can fetch an untapped source with this Flooded Strand and be able to Metallic Rebuke anything coming from C-Squared, not knowing, of course, that Exquisite Firecraft can't be countered. So, again, a little bit of a flood coming from this Atarka red deck. So they are running 21 lands. I don't think that's a high number unless if he brought any in, which he told us what he brought in, so no, he didn't. Just a little bit of bad luck there, but we'll see what he can do. He managed to make it with the lands last game, with those Ramen Up Ruins putting in the last couple points. We'll see if he can do the same here with this Exquisite Firecraft. So the only thoughts here, I think, is that if these Goblin tokens attack, whether or not we would want to block from Dragonfly. So Toolcraft Exemplar would trade, Bomat Courier would trade. I think Clayton would probably be happy with either of those trades. They serve a lot more purpose, either as an artifact to burn, or as just a creature on the way back. Alright, so he's attacking with 1 Goblin token and with the Monastery Swift Spear. So I think what he's afraid of here is an Ensoul artifact on this Bomat Courier. That would be 5 points of damage, so he'd rather have the blocker available for that, and he's just going to play it a little bit slow, hope to get some burn at some point. Not playing the Firecraft is interesting. I think that that's fine because of how much money he has. It's not like he's going to draw another card that costs 4. It's not that likely. I mean, Hazoret could show up, but it's fairly safe to hold that back there. And again, he didn't have to be worried of a Spell Queller at that point, so. Like we were just saying, so Dragonfly draws this Ensoul artifact off the top. Clayton is holding back his creature. If he hadn't held back that creature, he would have been dead on board here, so I think that was an excellent heads-up play. and we'll just have to see what Dragonfly goes for. I think that an attack with the Toolcraft Exemplar makes sense. He's already shown he's not going to block the Goblin token with it. I think that an Ensoul on the Bomat Courier probably makes sense. The only thing is that would turn off his Metallic Rebuke. So we've got a swing for 5. He's going to block the 3 of it, take 2, and go to 8. So he needs some sort of burn spell off the top here, or he's not going to be able to make this, I believe. Well, actually the question is whether or not... Ooh. Okay, so an Abrade. So that can take out the blocker here, or it can attempt to. Now, if he Metallic Rebukes, he is able to pay for it. It's only a pay 3, but that would mean that he does not have lethal. Unfortunately, Dragonfly now does not have any artifact to imbue with this Ensoul artifact on the way back. He also didn't fetch that Flooded Strand previously, which would have gotten him black to bring back one of these Scrapheap Scrounger End Phase. So I think that was a little bit of a mistake. He was trying to preserve his life total, and it held him back just a little bit. Oh, no. Okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself. He did not use the Metallic Rebuke. Instead, he held that open, hoping for something else, and that really burned him because this Exquisite Firecraft is able to get through.
I think the Squared played really well in showing that basically he made plays that disincentivized being safe. He didn't really show that he had the win.
Yeah, so it was interesting. If he had gone for the Metallic Rebuke, he would have been safe, but it's really hard to know that you're supposed to rebuke there when the opponent had the mana to pay for that. So it would have been the right play. We see the card off the top would have been Thraben Inspector. That wouldn't have been amazing, although he could have made a guy and ensouled it. Really, I think what he needed to do was to break the Flooded Strand a turn earlier for the Fetid Pools, and he needed to counter that first spell that came up, even just to tap the opponent out. I'm trying to think of that. Yeah, that would have actually got him the game, possibly. But yeah, very, very close there. I think that was...
If he did that, he had outs.
Yeah, he had outs,
Thing.
at the very least.
He had...
Because he could have brought back the Scrapheap Scrounger and used it in part of the Metallic Rebuke's improvise. And then he would have been able to ensoul it for the next turn for lethal. Alright, well that was the game. Hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll keep you up to date with when the next stream is going to happen, and make sure to check out anything Frontier we've got. Check out mtgfrontier.net. We've been hosting a lot of things. And check out the podcast if you guys have an mtgfrontier.net. Has that hosted there as well. Thanks a lot to hosting with me tonight, and I'm going to call it a day.
Yeah.
Alrighty.